A disabled kitten begs a dog for help, dragging her broken body through the rain, straight into danger. On a quiet farm, a cruel secret has festered for years. And now, a helpless kitten might pay the price. The man who's supposed to protect life? He's done the unthinkable before, and he's ready to do it again. But just when all hope seems lost, the family dog turns and does something no one could ever imagine. What could drive a loyal dog to break every rule of nature? And will it be enough to stop a monster in time? You being here is a reminder. The quiet acts of love and kindness still matter. If you hold space for compassion, you're already part of this community. The late afternoon rain drummed steadily against the tin roof of the Morrison family farm, creating a melancholic rhythm that matched Bethany's mood. She stood at the kitchen window, her small hands wrapped around a warm mug of hot chocolate, watching the heavy drops create muddy puddles in the backyard. The 14-year-old's brown eyes scanned the dreary landscape, taking in the familiar sight of their weathered red barn and the endless stretch of cornfields beyond. A flash of movement caught her attention. Something small was dragging itself through the wet grass behind the barn. Bethany squinted, pressing her face closer to the cold window pane. Her heart skipped a beat when she realized what it was. A tiny kitten, its fur matted and dirty, pulling itself forward with just its front legs, while its back legs dragged uselessly behind. "Oh no," she whispered, setting her mug down with trembling hands. She knew she shouldn't get involved. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Nature takes care of its own. Broken things don't survive long anyway. But Bethany couldn't just watch. She grabbed her oversized yellow raincoat from the hook by the back door and slipped outside. The rain immediately plastered her auburn hair to her face as she jogged toward the struggling creature. The kitten tried to scramble away as she approached, its front paws scrabbling in the mud. "It's okay, little one," Bethany cooed softly, crouching down. "I won't hurt you." The kitten was so small it could fit in her palm, its gray fur caked with mud and its back legs completely still. When she carefully scooped it up, she could feel its tiny heart racing against her hands. Bethany glanced toward the distant fields where she knew her father was working. Frank Morrison's tall figure was barely visible through the rain, a dark shape moving between the rows of corn. Her stomach clenched with anxiety. If he found out... "He won't find out," she whispered to herself, cradling the kitten close to her chest. "I won't let him hurt you." She hurried toward the barn, her worn boots splashing through puddles. The heavy wooden door creaked as she pushed it open, and the familiar smell of hay and leather filled her nostrils. The barn was warm and dry, filled with soft shadows and the gentle rustling of the horses in their stalls. Bethany climbed up to the hayloft, where she had created a secret space years ago. Behind some old feed bags and broken equipment, she had a small collection of supplies, an old blanket, some bandages, and a few tins of cat food she'd bought with her allowance money. She'd nursed other animals here before, injured birds, a baby rabbit with a broken leg, always in secret, always afraid of discovery. She settled the kitten on the blanket, using a clean rag to gently dry its fur. "You're safe now," she murmured, carefully examining its back legs. They were completely limp, but didn't appear to be broken. The kitten watched her with bright blue eyes, no longer trying to escape. "I think I'll call you Courage," Bethany said softly, stroking its tiny head with one finger. "Because that's what you have, dragging yourself all this way." The kitten responded with a weak meow that made Bethany's heart ache. She opened one of the tins of cat food and offered a small amount on her finger. The kitten sniffed cautiously, then began to eat with desperate hunger. "Poor thing," Bethany whispered. "How long have you been out there alone?" As she tended to the kitten, Bethany's mind raced with plans. She would need to keep Courage hidden, figure out how to care for a paralyzed animal, somehow get proper food and supplies without her father noticing. It seemed impossible, but looking at the tiny creature fighting so hard to live, she knew she had to try. The rain continued to drum on the roof above them as Bethany created a small nest for Courage using old towels. She knew she should head back to the house before her father returned, but she couldn't bear to leave just yet. The kitten had already fallen asleep, its small body curled into a tight ball, front paws twitching slightly as it dreamed. "I promise I'll protect you," Bethany whispered, gently stroking the kitten's now clean fur. "No matter what Dad says, you deserve a chance to live." She thought about all the times she'd heard splashing in the creek behind their property, all the times her father had come back with empty carriers and sad eyes, claiming the unwanted animals had found homes. She wasn't as naive as she'd been when she was younger. She knew what really happened. The distant sound of a tractor engine made Bethany jump. Her father was finishing up for the day. She quickly made sure Courage was secure and well hidden, then climbed down from the hayloft. As she reached the barn door, she paused to look back up at her secret sanctuary. "I'll be back soon," she promised quietly, then slipped out into the rain, her heart pounding with equal measures of fear and determination. She had taken the first step on a path that would change everything, though she didn't know it yet. All she knew was that she couldn't stand by and let another innocent creature suffer, no matter the cost. Racing back to the house, Bethany's mind was already working on her next steps. She would need to be careful, be smart, and above all, be brave, just like the tiny kitten who had fought so hard to survive. As she reached the back porch, she quickly shed her wet raincoat and boots, trying to erase any evidence of her rescue mission. Her father's tractor was getting closer, and she could almost feel the weight of his stern presence approaching. But for the first time in her life, Bethany felt something stronger than her fear of her father's disapproval, a fierce determination to protect something vulnerable, no matter what it might cost her. She had made her choice, and there was no going back now. Over the next few days, Bethany settled into a careful routine. She would wake up before sunrise, sneaking out to the barn to feed Courage and clean her makeshift bed. The tiny orange kitten grew stronger each day, though her back legs remained lifeless. Despite her disability, Courage's bright green eyes sparkled with determination that matched her name. "You're just like me," Bethany whispered one morning, gently cleaning the kitten's fur. "Everyone thinks you're broken, but you're not giving up." She watched as Courage pulled herself across the blanket using her front legs, moving with surprising speed. The sound of heavy boots on the barn floor made Bethany freeze. Her father's uneven footsteps echoed below, the familiar rhythm of one real leg and one prosthetic. She held her breath, cradling Courage close to her chest. Frank Morrison's voice carried up to the hayloft. "Rex, come on, boy. Time to check the fence line." The German shepherd's nails clicked against the wooden floor as he followed his master. Bethany didn't move until she heard the barn door close. Rex had been watching her, she knew. The large dog had seen her sneak in and out of the barn countless times, his amber eyes following her movements. But he hadn't alerted Frank, and somehow Bethany knew he wouldn't. Looking down at Courage, Bethany's mind wandered to the old skateboard gathering dust under her bed. "Maybe you don't have to drag yourself around forever," she said thoughtfully. That afternoon, while Frank was in town for supplies, she retrieved the skateboard and began to work. Using her father's tools, Bethany carefully removed the smaller front wheels. Her hands shook as she fashioned a tiny harness from soft leather scraps she found in the barn. It took hours of trial and error, but finally, she had created something workable, a small wheeled support that would help Courage move more easily. "Let's try this," Bethany said softly, fitting the harness around Courage's middle. The kitten squirmed at first, unused to the sensation. But when Bethany set her down, something magical happened. Courage's front legs pushed forward, and the wheels moved smoothly behind her. The kitten's eyes widened in surprise as she realized she could move freely. "You did it!" Bethany exclaimed, watching Courage roll across the hayloft floor. Tears welled in her eyes as the kitten explored her new mobility, purring loudly. From below came a low whine. Bethany peered over the edge to see Rex watching them, his head tilted in curiosity. "It's okay, Rex," she whispered. "This is our secret." That evening at dinner, Frank was quieter than usual. His gray eyes seemed distant as he pushed food around his plate. "Saw Tom Wilson in town today," he said finally. "His boy's shipping out to Vietnam next month." Bethany watched her father's hand tighten around his fork. She knew what was coming, one of his dark moods when memories of the war surfaced. "World's a harsh place," Frank continued, his voice rough. "No room for weakness out there. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is end suffering before it really begins." His prosthetic leg knocked against the table leg, making the dishes rattle. Bethany thought about Courage, about how the kitten fought to live despite everything. "Maybe," she said carefully, "what looks like weakness isn't always weakness." Frank's eyes snapped to her face. "Been spending a lot of time in the barn lately," he said. "Everything okay out there?" "Just helping with the horses," Bethany lied, her heart pounding. "And thinking about things." Rex, who had been lying in the corner, lifted his head and watched the exchange. Frank nodded slowly, but Bethany could see suspicion forming in his eyes. "You know how I feel about strays," he said. "Nature takes care of its own." "Yes, sir," Bethany replied, looking down at her plate. But inside, her resolve strengthened. She thought about all the times she'd heard splashing in the creek, all the times her father had returned with empty animal carriers. She wouldn't let Courage become another secret buried in the deep waters. Later that night, Bethany made one last trip to the barn. Courage was asleep in her nest, the tiny wheels of her harness glinting in the moonlight. Rex appeared silently beside her, his large form a comfort in the darkness. "I know you understand," Bethany whispered to the dog. "I know you've seen what Dad does." Rex's amber eyes met hers, filled with an intelligence that seemed almost human. He gently nosed Courage's sleeping form, then turned and padded away, resuming his role as silent guardian. As Bethany walked back to the house, she felt the weight of her secret growing heavier. Her father's suspicion, his harsh worldview shaped by war and loss, the years of hidden cruelty, it all pressed down on her. But the image of Courage rolling freely across the hayloft floor gave her strength. Sometimes the greatest courage wasn't in fighting battles, but in protecting something small and vulnerable against all odds. The morning sun had barely touched the horizon when Frank limped toward the barn, his prosthetic leg making a familiar pattern in the dirt. Rex trotted beside him, the dog's usual eagerness replaced by an unusual hesitation. Something about the animal's behavior had been off lately, and Frank intended to find out why. The barn door creaked open, and Frank paused, listening. A soft sound drifted down from the hayloft. A gentle voice mixed with, "Was that purring?" His jaw tightened as he moved toward the ladder, each step measured and deliberate. Bethany's voice became clearer as he climbed. "That's it, Courage. You're getting so good with your wheels." Frank's head cleared the loft floor, and the sight before him made his blood run cold. His daughter sat cross-legged on the hay, watching as a small orange kitten rolled toward her on makeshift wheels. The animal's back legs dragged uselessly behind the contraption, clearly paralyzed. "What is this?" His voice came out like gravel. Bethany spun around, her face draining of color. "Dad, I dash. I asked you a question. Frank pulled himself fully into the loft, his prosthetic leg catching on the ladder's last rung. The momentary struggle to right himself sent a flash of rage through his body. Her name is Courage, Bethany said, gathering the kitten into her arms. I found her in the rain. She was hurt, but she wanted to live. I couldn't just... You brought a crippled animal onto my farm? Frank's voice rose with each word. After everything I've taught you about weakness, about mercy? The kitten squirmed in Bethany's arms, its green eyes fixed on Frank. The wheels of its harness caught the morning light, reminding him of his own artificial limb. His hands began to shake. She's not weak, Bethany protested. Look at her. She found a way to survive. I made her wheels, and now she can move just fine. Just like... She stopped herself, but Frank knew what she'd been about to say. Just like me, he snarled. Is that what you think? That this broken thing and I are the same? The memories flooded back. The explosion, the searing pain, the months of rehabilitation, the pitying looks that never really went away. No, Dad, I just meant... I know exactly what you meant. Frank paced the loft, his uneven gait making the floorboards creak. You think you're being kind, but you're just prolonging suffering. I learned that lesson in Vietnam. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is end it quickly. Bethany clutched Courage tighter. Is that what you've been doing at the creek? All those animals that disappeared? Her voice trembled. You weren't being kind. You were being cruel. The accusation hit Frank like a physical blow. He saw himself at the creek, the water turning dark as he held another unwanted animal under. He'd told himself it was mercy, told himself he was preventing suffering. But in his daughter's eyes, he saw the truth he'd been avoiding. You have until sunset, he said, his voice deadly quiet. Get rid of it. Take it to the shelter in town if you want to ease your conscience. But if that thing is still here when the sun goes down, I'll handle it myself, just like all the others. Dad, please, Bethany begged. Tears streamed down her face. She deserves a chance. Everyone deserves a chance. Frank looked at the kitten, saw how it nestled trustingly in his daughter's arms despite its broken body. For a moment, he remembered the nurses who'd helped him learn to walk again, their patience as he struggled with his new reality. But the memory only fueled his anger. He'd survived because he was strong, not because of kindness. Sunset, he repeated. Not a minute longer. He turned toward the ladder, gripping the rails with white-knuckled hands. You're wrong, Bethany's voice followed him down. About courage, about weakness, about everything. And I won't let you hurt her. Frank paused at the bottom of the ladder, his daughter's words stirring something deep inside him, a recognition he wasn't ready to face. Without looking back, he strode out of the barn, his uneven footsteps echoing in the morning air. Rex stood in the doorway, looking between Frank and the loft with uncertain eyes. The dog had always been loyal, but lately he'd shown an independence that troubled Frank. Another sign of weakness he'd failed to correct. Come on, boy, Frank commanded, but Rex didn't move. The dog's resistance was the final straw. Frank felt his control slipping away, just like it had in those dark days after the war. He wouldn't let it happen again. He couldn't. As he walked away from the barn, Frank's mind was already forming plans. Sunset would come, and he would restore order to his world. One way or another, he would prove that mercy and strength were the same thing, even if his daughter would never understand. Bethany's hands trembled as she gathered hay into a makeshift nest behind the barn's furthest storage boxes. Courage watched from her wheeled harness, green eyes following every movement. The morning's confrontation with Frank still echoed in her mind, making her movements urgent and desperate. "We have to be smarter about this," she whispered to the kitten. "Dad never comes back here. These boxes haven't been moved in years." She lifted Courage gently, placing her in the new hiding spot. The kitten settled into the hay, purring softly. Rex appeared at the barn entrance, his massive form blocking the morning light. Bethany tensed, but the German Shepherd's posture remained relaxed. He padded over to their hiding spot, nose twitching as he investigated Courage. "You won't tell Dad, will you, Rex?" Bethany asked, scratching behind his ears. The dog leaned into her touch, then lay down between them and the door, his amber eyes fixed on the barn entrance. Something about his positioning felt deliberate, protective. Bethany pulled her knees to her chest, mind racing through options. "I could take you to Aunt Sarah's," she told Courage, "but she lives 3 hours away and I don't have any money for the bus." The kitten blinked at her, wheels squeaking slightly as she adjusted her position. Running away had crossed her mind more than once that morning. But where would they go? She had $47 saved from helping neighbors with their gardens, but that wouldn't last long. The animal shelter in town was a kill shelter. She'd learned that last summer when she tried to save a wounded rabbit. They'd put it down the same day. Heavy footsteps outside made them all freeze. Rex's ears perked up, but he didn't move from his spot. Frank's shadow passed by the barn door, his uneven gait marking his progress. Bethany held her breath until the sound faded. "He's getting worse," she whispered, more to herself than her companions. "I haven't seen him this angry since." She trailed off, remembering the day he'd found her nursing that rabbit. The memory of his rage still made her stomach clench. Rex whined softly, pressing closer to her side. The dog had been acting different lately, more attentive to her moods, more present when Frank was around. Like now, he should have gone to Frank when he passed by, but instead, he'd stayed with them. Bethany spent the next hour creating a small stockpile near the new hiding spot. Water in an old bowl, dry food she'd been sneaking from the house, even a few old towels for bedding. Her hands shook as she worked, knowing each minute brought them closer to sunset. Frank's voice boomed from outside. "Bethany, where are you?" "Coming, Dad." She gave Courage one last pat, whispering, "Stay quiet." To Rex, she added, "Watch her." The dog's steady gaze met hers, and he settled more firmly in his protective position. Bethany hurried outside, forcing her face into what she hoped was a neutral expression. Frank stood by the house, his prosthetic leg glinting in the midday sun. "Time's running out," he said without preamble. "That thing better be gone by sunset." "I'm handling it," Bethany managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Are you?" Frank stepped closer, his gray eyes boring into hers. "Because I haven't seen you leave the property. Haven't seen you make any calls. Starting to wonder if you're planning something foolish." Bethany's heart hammered in her chest. "I said I'm handling it." "Where's Rex?" Frank's sudden question caught her off guard. I don't know. Around somewhere?" Frank's jaw tightened. "Dog's been acting strange lately, following you around instead of doing his job." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "I don't like changes on my farm, Bethany. Changes mean trouble." "Rex is fine," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "He's just being friendly." "Friendly?" Frank spat the word like it tasted bad. "He's going soft. Just like you're going soft. Just like everything around here is going soft." His hands started shaking, the way they did when his anger was building. "Sunset," he repeated. "Not a minute later. And if I find out you've been hiding that broken thing..." He left the threat unfinished, limping away toward the fields. Bethany waited until he was out of sight before running back to the barn. Rex was exactly where she'd left him, still guarding Courage's hiding spot. The kitten poked her head out of the hay at Bethany's approach, wheels squeaking as she pulled herself forward. "What are we going to do?" Bethany whispered, dropping to her knees beside them. Rex pressed against her side, offering silent comfort. His presence felt different now, more purposeful, more aware, like he understood exactly what was at stake. The sun climbed higher in the sky, each passing hour bringing them closer to Frank's deadline. Bethany's mind raced through possibilities, each one seeming more impossible than the last. But as she sat there, sandwiched between a disabled kitten and a German shepherd who seemed to have appointed himself their protector, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't giving up, not on courage, and not on the chance to prove her father wrong about weakness and strength. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the barn's dusty windows as Bethany searched for better hiding places. Rex followed close behind, his nails clicking against the wooden floor. Every creak and groan of the old building made her jump, imagining Frank's heavy footsteps. "There has to be somewhere safer," she whispered, pushing aside empty feed bags. The back storage area held years of accumulated farm equipment and boxes. Her father never threw anything away, claiming everything might be useful someday. A stack of boxes caught her attention. They were different from the others, neatly labeled with dates rather than contents. Bethany pulled one down, sending dust motes dancing in the sunlight. Inside, she found manila folders filled with papers. "Veterinary records," she murmured, opening the top folder. The documents were organized by date, going back nearly 15 years. Dr. Thompson's letterhead appeared on page after page, detailing visits for various farm animals. Something felt wrong about the reports. Bethany read closer, her hands beginning to shake. A sheep with a broken leg, 3 chickens with crushed wings, a calf with suspicious bruising. Each injury was carefully documented, followed by notes about the animals being lost or disappeared shortly after treatment. Rex whined softly, pressing against her leg as she pulled out more folders. The pattern repeated over and over. Injured animals brought to the vet, then vanishing without explanation. Bethany's stomach churned as she recognized names of animals she remembered from her childhood. "Daisy," she whispered, touching a report about their old cow. "Dad said she wandered off." But the document told a different story. Severe trauma, possibly from blunt force, reported missing 3 days later. Her hands trembled as she opened another folder. This one contained records for their previous dog, Max. The report described suspicious injuries, with Dr. Thompson noting concerns about potential abuse. Max had run away the next week. Bethany remembered crying for days, searching the neighborhood for him. "He didn't run away, did he, Rex?" Her voice cracked. The German shepherd's ears flattened as he nudged her hand, almost like he understood. More folders revealed more victims, cats that showed up at the farm, only to vanish after suspicious injuries, rabbits found with broken bones, even wild animals that Frank claimed to have mercifully put down after accidents. The dates formed a timeline of destruction stretching back years. Bethany's vision blurred with tears as the truth sank in. These weren't accidents or coincidences. Her father hadn't just been cruel to courage, he'd been systematically hurting and killing animals for years, hiding his actions behind a facade of farming practicality. A particular report made her breath catch. It detailed injuries to a pregnant cat, found nearly drowned in the creek last month. Dr. Thompson had tried to save her, but only one kitten survived the trauma. The kitten had been born with paralyzed back legs due to oxygen deprivation. "Courage," Bethany gasped. "You're the only one who survived." She looked over at the kitten, who had dragged herself closer to investigate the commotion. Those bright green eyes seemed to hold wisdom beyond their weeks. The sound of a truck engine starting outside snapped Bethany back to reality. She quickly returned the folders to their boxes, mind reeling from what she'd discovered. Her father wasn't just trying to get rid of one disabled kitten. He was continuing a pattern that had claimed countless victims over the years. Rex stood guard at the barn door while Bethany reorganized the boxes, making sure nothing looked disturbed. Her hands shook as she worked, understanding now why the dog had been staying close lately. Had he somehow sensed the danger? Had he known all along what Frank was capable of? The weight of her discovery pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. All those missing animals, all those convenient explanations, they'd been lies. Her father, the man who taught her to ride a bike and helped her with homework, was responsible for so much death and suffering. Bethany sank to the floor beside Courage, pulling the kitten into her lap. "I won't let him hurt you," she promised, her voice fierce despite her tears. "I won't let him hurt anyone else." Rex lay down beside them, his solid presence offering silent support. The barn felt different now, filled with the echoes of all those lost animals. Bethany stroked Courage's fur, understanding that this wasn't just about saving one kitten anymore. It was about exposing years of hidden cruelty, about breaking a cycle of violence that had gone unchecked for too long. She looked at the boxes of records, then at Courage's determined face and Rex's watchful eyes. The truth was out now, hidden in those carefully filed papers. The question was, what would she do with it? Bethany's hands trembled as she clutched the manila folder of veterinary records. The screen door slammed behind her as she stepped onto the back porch where Frank sat cleaning his work boots. The setting sun cast long shadows across the weathered wood planks, and the evening air felt heavy with tension. "Dad," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "We need to talk about something." Frank didn't look up from his task. "Unless it's about that crippled cat being gone, I'm not interested." "Actually," Bethany took a deep breath, "it's about all the animals you've killed." She opened the folder and pulled out the first document. Like Daisy and Max and dozens of others. The brush in Frank's hand stopped moving. He slowly raised his head, his gray eyes sharp and cold. "Where did you get those?" "They were in the barn. Dr. Thompson kept detailed records of every injured animal you brought in." Bethany's voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue. "Before they all mysteriously disappeared." Frank set his boot down with deliberate care. "You've been snooping where you don't belong." "I know what you did to Courage's mother," Bethany pressed on, though her heart hammered in her chest. "Dr. Thompson's report shows you tried to drown her while she was pregnant. Courage survived, but barely." "That cat was suffering," Frank growled, pushing himself up from his chair. His prosthetic leg creaked with the movement. Just like all the others. I did what needed to be done." "You murdered them!" Bethany's voice rose, tears streaming down her face. "They weren't suffering until you hurt them. Dr. Thompson suspected abuse. It's all here in his notes." Frank took a menacing step forward, his face darkening with rage. "You ungrateful little—" He lunged for the papers, but Bethany jumped back. "Don't touch me," she shouted. "If you try to hurt Courage or any other animal, I'll take these records to the police. Everyone will know what you've done." The change in Frank's expression sent ice through Bethany's veins. The carefully controlled mask he usually wore cracked completely, revealing something terrible beneath. His hand shot out, grabbing her arm with bruising force. "You think you can threaten me?" he snarled, yanking her closer. "Your own father? I've sacrificed everything to keep this farm running, to put food on your table, and this is how you repay me? Dad, you're hurting me." Bethany tried to pull away, but his grip only tightened. "You want to know about suffering?" Frank's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "I watched my friends die in Vietnam. I crawled through mud with half my leg blown off. You have no idea what real pain is." He twisted her arm, forcing her to drop the folder. Papers scattered across the porch as Bethany cried out in pain. "Please stop." "I won't let some snot-nosed kid destroy everything I've built," Frank growled. "Those animals were weak, broken, just like—" He caught himself, but Bethany saw the truth in his eyes. "Just like you," she whispered. "Is that why you do it? Because you can't stand anything that reminds you of your own disability?" Frank's face contorted with fury. He shoved Bethany hard, sending her stumbling backward. She hit the porch railing, the impact knocking the wind from her lungs. As she gasped for air, Frank advanced on her, his hands clenched into fists. "You don't understand anything," he said, his voice trembling with barely controlled rage. "Sometimes mercy means ending suffering before it starts. Those animals were better off dead than living as broken things." "That's not mercy," Bethany choked out. "That's murder, and you're not going to get away with it anymore." Frank reached for her again, but a deep growl stopped him short. Rex stood at the screen door, hackles raised, teeth bared. The German Shepherd's usual gentle demeanor had vanished, replaced by a fierce protectiveness that made even Frank step back. "Rex," Frank said sharply, "inside, now!" The dog didn't move. Instead, he pushed through the screen door and positioned himself between Frank and Bethany, his growl growing louder. "Even the dog knows what you are," Bethany said, her voice shaking but determined. "A bully. A coward who hurts things smaller than himself to feel strong." Frank's face went purple with rage. "I'll show you what I am." He took another step forward, but Rex's warning bark stopped him again. The dog's message was clear. "Come no closer." "You have a choice, Dad," Bethany said, slowly gathering the scattered papers while keeping her eyes on her father. "Leave Courage alone and get help, or I'll make sure everyone knows the truth. About everything." "You wouldn't dare," Frank snarled, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Try me." Bethany straightened up, clutching the records to her chest. "I'm not afraid of you anymore." They stood frozen in a tableau of tension. Frank with his fists clenched, Bethany backed against the railing, and Rex standing guard between them. The evening birds had gone silent, as if holding their breath along with them. "This isn't over," Frank finally said, his voice cold with promise. "Not by a long shot." He turned and stalked into the house, his heavy footsteps echoing through the old farmhouse. Bethany's legs gave out, and she slid down the railing to sit on the porch steps. Rex immediately came to her side, pressing his warm body against her as she buried her face in his fur and sobbed. The veterinary records crumpled in her grip, physical proof of years of hidden cruelty. She knew with terrifying certainty that she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Her father's mask had finally slipped completely, revealing the monster beneath, one who wouldn't hesitate to hurt his own daughter to keep his secrets. The stakes weren't just about saving Courage anymore, they were about survival. The next morning dawned cold and gray. Frank sat at the kitchen table, methodically cleaning his hunting rifle. Each stroke of the cloth was precise, controlled, like everything else he did. But his hands shook slightly, betraying the rage that simmered beneath his calm exterior. Bethany watched from the hallway, her heart pounding. She'd barely slept, spending the night barricaded in her room, with Courage hidden safely under her bed. Rex had stationed himself outside her door all night, refusing to leave despite Frank's repeated calls. Frank chambered around with a sharp click. "Get your coat," he said without looking up. "We're taking a drive." "I'm not going anywhere with you," Bethany said, trying to keep her voice steady. Frank finally raised his eyes to meet hers. They were empty of any warmth. "This isn't a request. Get your coat and bring that cat. Rex," he whistled sharply. "Come." Rex stood slowly, his nails clicking on the wooden floor. The German Shepherd's ears were flat against his head, and his tail hung low. He moved to stand beside Bethany, pressing against her leg. "Now," Frank said, rising from his chair. The rifle gleamed dully in his hands. Bethany felt tears burning in her eyes. "Please, Dad, don't do this. You brought this on yourself." Frank's voice was terrifyingly calm. "You want to see what happens to animals that cross me? Fine. I'll show you exactly what happens." He gestured with the rifle toward the stairs. Bethany's legs felt like lead as she climbed them, Rex following close behind. In her room, she gathered courage into her arms, the tiny cat trembling against her chest. "It's okay," she whispered, though nothing was okay. "I won't let him hurt you." But as she descended the stairs and saw Frank waiting by the door, rifle in hand, she wasn't sure how she could keep that promise. "Get in the truck," Frank ordered, holding the screen door open. The morning air was sharp with frost, and their breath came out in white puffs. Bethany clutched courage tighter as she walked to the battered pickup. Rex jumped into the truck bed without being told, his eyes never leaving Frank. There was something different about the dog's behavior, a new intensity in his gaze, an alertness that seemed almost human. Frank drove them down the rutted farm roads, past fallow fields and skeletal trees. Bethany recognized the route with growing dread. They were heading toward the old quarry pond, a deep, murky pool left over from the mining days. Local kids sometimes swam there in summer, but most avoided it, spooked by stories of things that had vanished beneath its dark surface. Rex paced restlessly in the truck bed, making low sounds that weren't quite growls. Every time Frank glanced in the rearview mirror, the dog's eyes were fixed on him with unnerving focus. "Stop fidgeting," Frank snapped at Bethany. "This is what happens when you stick your nose where it doesn't belong. Actions have consequences." "Like murdering innocent animals?" Bethany's voice shook. "Is that what you're teaching me about consequences?" Frank's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "You think you understand so much. You think you know what's right and wrong. But the world isn't that simple." "This seems pretty simple to me," Bethany said, stroking Courage's fur. The kitten had gone very still, as if sensing the danger. "You're hurting things that can't fight back. That's wrong." The truck bounced over a particularly deep rut, and Frank's prosthetic leg knocked against the floor with a hollow sound. His jaw clenched. "Sometimes kindness looks like cruelty. Sometimes the merciful thing is to end suffering before it starts." "Is that what you tell yourself?" Bethany asked. "That you're being merciful?" Before Frank could answer, Rex let out a sharp bark. The sound was different from his usual voice, more urgent, almost like he was trying to form words. Frank glanced in the mirror again, his expression uncertain. They pulled up to the quarry pond. The water was black and still, reflecting the gray sky like polished obsidian. Dead trees lined the banks, their bare branches reaching toward the clouds like grasping fingers. "Out," Frank commanded, grabbing his rifle. Bethany didn't move. "No!" Frank yanked open her door and seized her arm, dragging her from the truck. Courage mewled in protest as Bethany stumbled, barely keeping her grip on the kitten. "You wanted to know what happens to animals that don't belong?" Frank's voice was razor sharp. "Watch carefully." He reached for Courage, but Rex leaped from the truck bed with a snarl that made them all freeze. The German shepherd planted himself between Frank and Bethany, his hackles raised and teeth bared. "Rex!" Frank barked. "Down!" But Rex didn't back down. Instead, he took a deliberate step forward, forcing Frank to step back. There was something eerily purposeful about the dog's movements, something that went beyond normal animal behavior. "What's gotten into you?" Frank raised the rifle, pointing it at Rex. "I said down." Rex's growl deepened, and his amber eyes seemed to glow with an inner light. The air around them grew thick with tension as dog and man faced each other, neither willing to back down. "Dad, Bethany said softly. "Put the gun down." "Shut up." Frank's composure was cracking. "This ends now. All of it." He swung the rifle toward Courage. Rex's growl changed, becoming something impossible. Something that made Bethany's blood run cold and Frank's face drain of color. The German shepherd was still growling, but beneath the animal sound were words. Actual words, rough and guttural, but unmistakably human. "No," Rex said, the sound rolling from his throat like thunder. "You will not hurt them." Frank stumbled backward, the rifle slipping from his nerveless fingers. What are you?" Rex took another step forward, his voice growing stronger. "I have watched you hurt the helpless. I have stayed silent too long. No more." Frank's laughter echoed across the quarry pond, a harsh sound that scattered a few crows from their perches in the dead trees. The rifle lay forgotten on the ground as he staggered backward, pointing a trembling finger at Rex. "You can't. This isn't." His words stumbled over each other. Then something shifted in his expression, a kind of terrible clarity replacing his shock. "Of course. I'm finally losing my mind, just like they said I would." "You're not crazy, Dad," Bethany said, though her own voice shook with disbelief. "I heard it too." Frank's face hardened. "Doesn't matter. Crazy or not, this ends today." He straightened up, his military bearing asserting itself. "You want to know why? Why I do what needs to be done?" He gestured at the black water. "This pond has been my friend for years. It keeps secrets well." Rex growled again, the sound underlaid with that impossible human voice. Tell her everything." "Fine." Frank's laugh had an edge of hysteria. "You want confessions? Here's your confession. Every runt, every broken thing, every animal too weak to survive, they all ended up here. Quick and clean. No suffering." His voice took on an almost dreamy quality. "The water takes them quietly. It's peaceful, really?" Bethany clutched Courage tighter, feeling the kitten's rapid heartbeat against her hands. "How many?" she whispered. "I stopped counting after the first year." Frank's casual tone made it worse. "That pregnant cat, Courage's mother, she was going to have a litter of deformed kittens. I could tell. Better to end it before they suffered. But she fought harder than most. One got away." He nodded at Courage. "And look what happened. A broken thing that should never have lived." "She's not broken," Bethany shouted. "She's brave and strong and—" "She's weak," Frank roared back. "Just like I was weak, lying in that hospital bed with half my leg gone." He slapped his prosthetic leg, the hollow sound echoing. "You think I don't know what happens to the weak? The world destroys them anyway. I'm just more efficient." Rex moved forward, his massive form blocking Frank's path to Bethany. "You speak of weakness," the dog rumbled, "but I have watched you for 7 years. Your heart is what is weak." Frank's face twisted. 7 years? 7 years you've been here, watching. Why speak now?" "Because now you threaten not just the helpless, but your own blood." Rex's amber eyes seemed to glow brighter. "I have seen every death, every animal you dragged to this pond. I remember their fear, their confusion as you held them under—" Bethany felt sick. "How could you? All this time?" "Because I understand what mercy really is," Frank shouted. "After what I saw in Vietnam, the suffering, the endless suffering." His voice cracked. "Sometimes death is a gift. Sometimes it's the only kindness we can offer." He lunged suddenly, not for Bethany, but for Rex trying to circle around the dog. But Rex was faster, his powerful body moving with fluid grace to maintain the barrier between Frank and his targets. "You will not touch them," Rex growled. "They'll suffer." Frank's composure shattered completely. "Don't you understand? The world is cruel to broken things. That cat will never run, never hunt, never live a normal life. And you, he jabbed a finger at Rex, you're an abomination, something unnatural. You think I can let either of you live, knowing what you are? The only unnatural thing here is what you've done, Bethany said, her voice stronger now. All those animals, they trusted you. They depended on us to protect them. Frank's expression turned calculating. Like your mother trusted me to protect her? To take care of our family? He took a step closer. She was weak too, you know. Couldn't even survive giving birth to you. The world has no place for... Rex's snarl cut him off, and this time there was no trace of human speech in it, just pure animal fury. The German shepherd's muscles bunched as he prepared to spring. Stay back, Frank warned, reaching for the rifle. I'll kill you both. Quick and clean. Just like all the others. Bethany can watch. Maybe then she'll finally understand. I understand plenty, Bethany said. She could feel courage trembling in her arms. But the kitten wasn't trying to hide. Instead, her tiny face was turned toward Frank, green eyes bright and unafraid. I understand that you're a coward who hurts things smaller than himself to feel strong. Frank's hand closed around the rifle. You ungrateful little... He swung the weapon up, aiming at Rex. I'll start with your precious guardian, then the cat. Then we'll discuss your attitude. Rex didn't flinch from the barrel pointed at his head. You forget, the dog said, his voice like distant thunder. I am not one of your helpless victims. The German shepherd's muscles tensed, and Bethany could see the change rippling through him. Not just physical, but something deeper. 7 years of witnessing cruelty, of being forced to watch as innocent creatures died. All of it seemed to crystallize in this moment. Last chance, Frank said, his finger tightening on the trigger. Down. Now. Rex's reply was simple. No. The standoff stretched. 3 figures frozen in tableau beside the dark water. Frank with his rifle, Rex with his newfound voice, and Bethany holding courage, who watched it all with those bright, fearless eyes. The morning air grew thick with tension, waiting for someone to make the first move. Frank's finger began to squeeze the trigger. You should have stayed silent, he said. You should have just kept watching. That's all dogs are supposed to do. Watch and obey. I am done watching, Rex replied. I am done being silent. His powerful muscles coiled, ready to spring. And I am done letting you hurt the innocent. The rifle's safety clicked off with a sound like breaking ice. Frank's hands were steady now, years of military training taking over as he sighted down the barrel at Rex. Time to end this farce, he said. Bethany clutched courage tighter, her heart hammering. She wanted to run, to scream, to do something, but fear held her rooted to the spot. The morning sun caught the rifle's metal, making it gleam like the quarry pond's dark surface. Rex stood his ground, amber eyes fixed on Frank. The German shepherd's massive form seemed to grow larger, more imposing, as if drawing strength from some unseen source. His lips pulled back, revealing white teeth. But what happened next wasn't a growl. Stop! The word rumbled from Rex's throat, rough and halting, but unmistakably human. Hurting. His jaw worked with careful precision. Her. The rifle slipped in Frank's hands, nearly falling before he caught it. His face drained of color, leaving him ashen in the morning light. What? He stumbled backward, boots scraping on loose gravel. What did you say? I said stop hurting her. Rex's voice was stronger now, more confident, though still carrying an otherworldly growl beneath the words. No more death. No more cruelty. Frank's legs gave out and he sat hard on the ground, the rifle clattering beside him. This isn't possible, he whispered. Dogs don't talk. Dogs can't... His eyes darted wildly between Rex and Bethany. You're doing this somehow. Some kind of trick. No trick, Rex said, taking a step forward. 7 years I have watched. 7 years of silence while you murdered the innocent. Another step, but no more. A strange sound escaped Frank's throat. Half laugh, half sob. I'm crazy. They said it would happen eventually. The doctors warned me about trauma, about delayed effects. His hands clutched at his head. I'm hearing things, seeing things. You're not crazy, Dad, Bethany said softly. I hear him too. Then I'm not the only one who's lost their mind. Frank's voice rose to a shout. This is impossible. This is... He reached for the rifle again, movements jerky and desperate. I'll prove it's not real. I'll prove you're just a dog. The only thing you've proven, Rex growled, is your own weakness. Frank froze, the rifle halfway to his shoulder. What did you say? You speak of weakness in others, Rex continued, his supernatural voice filling the quarry. You drowned the sick, the injured, the young, claiming mercy. But I have seen into your heart, Frank Morrison. Your soul is crippled by fear. No. Frank's hands began to shake. You don't understand. You couldn't understand. I understand everything. Rex's amber eyes seemed to peer straight through Frank. I understand the nightmares that wake you screaming, the phantom pain that makes you rage at the world, the terror that drives you to destroy anything that reminds you of your own vulnerability. Frank's composure cracked completely. Stop it, he screamed, pressing his hands over his ears like a child. You're just a dog. You can't know these things. I know the truth you hide from yourself, Rex pressed on relentlessly. Each animal you murdered wasn't an act of mercy. It was an attempt to kill the broken parts of your own soul. Bethany watched in stunned silence as her father curled in on himself, rocking slightly. The powerful, controlling man who had terrorized her for so long was crumbling before her eyes. 7 years, Rex continued, his voice softer now, but no less devastating. 7 years I have carried the weight of your sins. I remember each one. The blind puppy who only wanted to play. The 3-legged cat who purred until the end. The old horse who trusted you, even as you led him to the water. Stop! Frank's voice was barely a whisper. They haunt you too, don't they? Rex asked. In the quiet moments, in the dark. Their eyes follow you, asking why. Why did you betray their trust? Why did you answer suffering with more suffering? Frank's hands clawed at the ground, grabbing fistfuls of loose stone. I was helping them, saving them from a world that destroys the weak, like it tried to destroy me. No, Rex's supernatural voice carried absolute conviction. You were trying to drown your own pain, one innocent life at a time. He moved closer until he stood directly over Frank. But pain cannot be drowned, Frank Morrison. It can only be faced. Frank looked up at Rex, his face wet with tears. What are you? I am what I have always been, Rex replied. A witness, a protector, and now a voice for those you silenced. The rifle lay forgotten beside Frank as he stared up at the German shepherd, seeing him truly for the first time. All these years, you knew. You saw everything? Everything, Rex confirmed. And now you must face what you have done. Frank's gaze drifted to the dark water of the quarry pond. How many? He whispered. How many did I? You know the number, Rex said. It burns in your memory, doesn't it? Each face, each struggle, each final breath. Frank pressed his hands against his eyes, his whole body shaking. I can't face it. Please, ... You must, Rex said firmly. For their sake, for Bethany's sake, for your own. Bethany stepped forward, still holding courage. The kitten's green eyes were fixed on Frank, showing neither fear nor judgment, only a quiet wisdom that seemed to echo Rex's supernatural presence. "Dad," she said softly, "it's time to stop running." Frank looked at his daughter, then at the disabled kitten in her arms. His face crumpled as 7 years of carefully maintained control finally shattered. "What have I done?" he sobbed. "Dear God, what have I done?" Rex moved closer to Frank, his massive form casting a shadow over the broken man. When he spoke again, his supernatural voice carried the weight of years of silent observation. "I remember the first time," Rex said, each word carefully formed. "3 summers ago. The blind collie puppy." His amber eyes seemed to look into the past. She was so full of joy, even without sight, always wagging her tail, following the sound of footsteps. Frank shuddered, pressing his hands against his ears. But Rex's voice cut through his defenses. "I watched you lead her to the same pond," Rex continued. "She trusted you completely. Even when the water closed over her head, she never stopped believing in human kindness." "Please," Frank whimpered. "I can't." "You must," Rex growled. "After her, it became easier, didn't it? The old mare with arthritis, the injured rabbit, the cat with 3 legs. Each death made the next one simpler." Bethany cradled Courage closer, her eyes wide as she witnessed Rex's transformation from silent guardian to supernatural judge. The kitten's tiny wheels squeaked softly as she shifted in Bethany's arms. "My voice," Rex said. "It didn't come quickly. At first, I could only understand your words. Then slowly, I learned their meaning. Years passed as I watched, learned, and waited." His supernatural voice grew stronger. "Every night, I practiced in secret, making sounds become words, fighting against the limits of what a dog should be." Frank stared up at Rex, his face a mask of terror and disbelief. "All this time, you were learning, growing, becoming more than what you thought I was." Rex's eyes blazed with an inner light. "Just like all those animals you killed, they could have become more if you had given them the chance. I didn't. I wasn't." Frank's words dissolved into broken sounds. "You thought you were being merciful," Rex said. "But I saw the truth in your eyes. Each death was a mirror of your own pain. Each struggle against the water was your struggle against weakness." Bethany watched as her father curled into himself, rocking back and forth on the ground. The strong, controlling man who had terrorized their home for so long was crumbling under the weight of Rex's words. "The hardest part," Rex continued, his supernatural voice thick with emotion, "was staying silent when they begged. Some used their voices. Some used their eyes. All of them asked the same question. Why?" "Stop," Frank pleaded. "I can't bear it." "But you made them bear it," Rex growled. "You made them face their end alone, convinced you were doing right." He took another step forward. "I have carried their memories, their fear, their confusion. 7 years of witnessing your crimes." Frank's hands clawed at the gravel, his prosthetic legs scraping against the stones. "I was protecting them. The world is cruel to broken things." "No!" Rex's voice thundered across the quarry. "You were hiding from your own brokenness. Each death was an attempt to drown your own fears." Tears streamed down Frank's face as he stared at the dark water of the quarry pond. "How?" he choked out. "How many?" 37, Rex said without hesitation. 37 souls sent into the dark water. 37 trusting hearts betrayed. The number seemed to physically strike Frank. He doubled over, retching onto the gravel. "Oh God," he gasped. "Oh God, what have I done?" "I remember each one," Rex continued relentlessly. "The way they fought, the way they surrendered, the way the water went still." Frank began to rock faster, his hands pulling at his graying hair. "Make it stop," he begged. "Please make it stop." "You cannot stop truth once it's spoken," Rex said. "Just as you cannot return life to those you've taken." He moved until he stood directly over Frank. "I have waited years for this moment, gathered my strength, found my voice, all so I could force you to face what you've done." "I'm sorry," Frank sobbed. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry cannot empty the pond of its dead," Rex growled. "Sorry cannot erase 7 years of cruelty." Bethany watched as her father's defenses crumbled completely. The man who had ruled their home through fear and control was now reduced to incoherent mumbling, rocking back and forth as Rex's words stripped away his carefully constructed justifications. "The truth has teeth," Rex said, his supernatural voice filled with grim satisfaction. "And now it will never let you go." Frank's eyes darted wildly between Rex, Bethany, and the pond. His hands opened and closed spasmodically, grabbing at nothing. "The voices," he whispered. "I can hear them now. All of them. In the water. Calling ... "Yes," Rex confirmed. "They've always been there, waiting for you to listen." "Make them stop!" Frank screamed suddenly, pressing his hands against his ears hard enough to leave marks. "Make them stop looking at me!" "They will never stop," Rex said. "Just as I will never stop watching, never stop remembering." Frank's scream echoed across the quarry as something final broke inside him. He collapsed fully onto the gravel, curling into a fetal position, his words dissolving into a stream of broken apologies and pleas for forgiveness. Rex stood over him, a massive dark guardian, his amber eyes reflecting a wisdom and power that transcended his canine form. He had waited 7 years for this moment, developing his extraordinary ability in secret, gathering his strength for the confrontation that would finally bring justice to the innocent lives lost in the dark waters of the quarry pond. The morning sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the scene. The broken man on the ground, the loyal dog turned supernatural judge, the brave daughter holding her disabled kitten, and the dark water that held so many secrets. Rex's revelation had done more than expose Frank's crimes. It had shattered the foundation of his carefully constructed reality, leaving him face to face with the full horror of his actions. Rex's amber eyes softened as he turned from Frank's broken form to look at the tiny kitten in Bethany's arms. Courage stared back at him, her bright green eyes seeming to hold wisdom beyond her few weeks of life. "There is more you need to know," Rex said, his supernatural voice gentling. "About Courage, about why she found her way here." Bethany held the kitten closer, protective instincts flaring. "What do you mean?" "Her arrival was not chance," Rex continued. "She was drawn here by something stronger than fate, something that began 7 years ago, with Frank's first victim." Frank's rocking stopped abruptly, his whole body tensing at Rex's words. "It was spring," Rex said, his voice heavy with memory. "A gray morning, much like today. A pregnant cat came to the barn, seeking shelter to have her kittens." Frank's breathing grew ragged. "No," he whispered. "Not that one. Please." "Yes," Rex growled. "The calico with white paws. The one who trusted you when you offered her food. The one who purred against your hand even as you carried her to the pond." Bethany gasped, looking down at Courage with new understanding. The kitten's tiny paws kneaded the air, her makeshift wheels gleaming in the morning light. "She was so close to giving birth," Rex continued. "You could see the movement of her kittens when she lay in the sun. But that didn't stop you. Nothing stopped you then. It was your first time, and you hadn't yet learned to hide your crimes from the vet." Frank pressed his face into the gravel. "I remember," he choked out. "God help me, I remember." "You held her under longer than the others," Rex said, "making sure you told yourself, being thorough. But you didn't know about the miracle that was happening beneath the surface. Bethany's eyes widened. "Courage?" she whispered. Rex nodded solemnly. One tiny heart refused to stop beating. One soul fought against the darkness. Even as her mother's life slipped away, this one kitten held on. "But how?" Bethany asked, tears streaming down her face. "The mother's body protected her," Rex explained, "and something more, a will to live that defied nature itself. When you threw the mother's body into the deeper water, Frank, you didn't see the movement. But I did." Frank lifted his head, his face ashen. "What movement?" "The ripples that followed, the small disturbance that meant life still fought within death." Rex's supernatural voice grew stronger. The mother's body drifted into the reeds, and there, in the shallow water, a miracle occurred. One tiny kitten, still sealed in her birth sac, slipped free. Bethany clutched Courage tighter, her tears falling onto the kitten's orange fur. "She survived?" "More than survived," Rex said. "She clawed her way out of death itself. But the long minutes without oxygen left their mark." He looked meaningfully at Courage's paralyzed back legs. "Her disability is not a defect, Frank. It is a testament to what you tried and failed to destroy." Frank stared at the tiny kitten as if seeing her for the first time. "All this time," he whispered, "she was." "The daughter of your first victim," Rex confirmed. "The survivor who crawled from this very pond. The living proof that your cruelty could not extinguish all light from the world." Courage met Frank's gaze steadily, her green eyes holding neither fear nor judgment. In that moment, she seemed to embody both justice and mercy. The consequences of Frank's actions returned to confront him, yet offering the possibility of redemption through her very existence. "I found her," Rex continued. "Still wet from the pond, barely breathing. I kept her warm through the night, cleaned her tiny body, helped her take her first breaths. But I couldn't save her legs. The damage was done." "And now she's come back," Bethany said softly. "She found her way home." "Not home," Rex corrected. "She found her way to justice, to truth, to the place where her story began, so that it could finally be told." Frank reached out a trembling hand toward Courage, then pulled it back as if burned. "How many?" he asked brokenly. "How many kittens died with their mother that day?" "4," Rex said. 4 tiny hearts stopped beating beneath the dark water. Only Courage survived, marked forever by your actions, yet refusing to be defined by them." The kitten's purr rumbled softly in the morning air, a sound of life and forgiveness that seemed to cut through Frank's defenses more effectively than any accusation. "She was the first," Rex said, "the beginning of your descent into darkness. But now she's also become the end, the truth that finally broke your power to harm." Frank's body shook with sobs. I thought I was being merciful," he gasped, "protecting them from a cruel world. But I was the cruelty. I was the darkness they needed protection from." "Yes," Rex said simply, "and now you must live with that knowledge, just as Courage has lived with the consequences of your actions every day of her life." The tiny kitten squirmed in Bethany's arms, her wheels squeaking as she turned to face Frank fully. Her bright eyes held no hatred, no desire for vengeance, only the simple, profound truth of her existence. "She is not broken," Rex said firmly. "She is a survivor. Every drag of her legs, every turn of her wheels, every purr and playful moment is a victory over the darkness you tried to impose on her. She is living proof that what you saw as weakness was actually unstoppable strength." Frank stared at Courage, seeing in her small form all the lives he had taken, all the potential he had tried to drown. But he also saw something else, a chance for redemption, offered through the very survival he had tried to prevent. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden light across the quarry pond. In that light, Courage's orange fur seemed to glow, transforming her into a living flame of hope and resilience. She was more than just a disabled kitten now. She was the miracle that had crawled from death's edge, the truth that had waited 7 years to be revealed, and the key that had finally unlocked the dark vault of Frank's conscience. The morning after Rex's shocking revelation at the quarry pond, 3 police cars rolled up the gravel driveway of the Morrison farm. Their red and blue lights painted silent patterns across the weathered barn walls. Frank sat motionless on the front porch steps, his face pale and haunted, while Bethany stood nearby, with Courage cradled protectively in her arms. Detective Sarah Martinez stepped out of the lead vehicle, her experienced eyes taking in the scene. She'd received a call earlier that morning that had seemed almost unbelievable. A man wanting to confess to multiple animal killings with claims of a speaking dog as witness. Now, facing the reality of the situation, her skepticism began to fade. "Mr. Morrison," she asked, approaching the broken man on the steps. "I'm Detective Martinez. You called about making a statement?" Frank nodded slowly, his hands trembling. "Yes, I need to tell you everything." Rex sat alertly beside Bethany, his amber eyes focused on the detective. The German Shepherd's presence seemed to command attention, even before he revealed his extraordinary ability. "It started 7 years ago," Frank began, his voice cracking, "with a pregnant calico cat. I drowned her in the quarry pond. Then there were others, so many others." Detective Martinez signaled to her partner to start recording as Frank's confession poured out. He spoke of each animal in detail, dates, circumstances, his twisted reasoning about mercy and weakness. The detective's face remained professional, but her eyes hardened with each revelation. "And you have evidence of these crimes?" she asked, glancing at Bethany. The 14-year-old stepped forward. "Yes, ma'am. Veterinary records in the barn. They show a pattern. Animals brought in with suspicious injuries, then disappearing." "There's more," Frank interrupted, looking up with tears in his eyes. "Something you need to see. Something you won't believe unless you witness it yourself." He turned to Rex. "Show them, please." The detective's eyebrows rose as Rex stepped forward, his bearing almost regal. The silence stretched for a moment before the German Shepherd opened his mouth. "I saw everything," Rex said carefully, his supernatural voice clear in the morning air. Detective Martinez stumbled backward, her hand instinctively reaching for her weapon before forcing herself to relax. Her partner dropped his notebook. "Good Lord," she whispered. "I have witnessed 7 years of murders," Rex continued, each word deliberate and distinct. "I can describe each one." What followed was unprecedented in law enforcement history. For over 2 hours, Rex provided detailed testimony about Frank's crimes, his unusual speech pattern becoming more fluid with practice. 3 additional detectives were called to the scene, along with animal behavior specialists and veterinary experts. Dr. Eleanor Chen, a leading animal cognition researcher, arrived by helicopter that afternoon. She conducted initial tests with Rex, documenting his linguistic abilities and comprehension levels. "This isn't supernatural," she explained to the gathered officials. "It's an extraordinary leap in animal intelligence and adaptation. Rex has essentially developed a specialized form of human speech through years of observation and necessity. While unprecedented, it's scientifically explainable." Her assessment helped transform what could have been dismissed as a fantastical story into a groundbreaking case of animal cognition that lent credibility to Rex's testimony. Frank's confession, combined with the veterinary records and Rex's detailed account, created an airtight case. Child Protective Services arrived the next day. Caseworker Michael Thompson reviewed the situation with growing concern. Given the evidence of long-term animal cruelty and the psychological impact on a minor, he explained to Bethany, we need to ensure your safety and well-being. Bethany clutched courage tighter. I can't leave the farm. This is my home, and these animals need me. Actually, Detective Martinez interjected, there might be a solution. She pulled out several documents. Given the circumstances of the case and the evidence of Mr. Morrison's crimes, the court can expedite proceedings to transfer property rights. Since you're the sole heir, and there's clear documentation of your father's unfitness as guardian. Hope bloomed in Bethany's eyes. You mean I could keep the farm? With proper adult supervision and support systems in place, yes, Mr. Thompson confirmed. We've already identified potential foster parents with farming experience who could live on site as your guardians while maintaining your connection to the property. Frank, who had remained silent during these discussions, finally spoke up from his seated position between two officers. It's right, he said quietly. The farm should go to someone who protects life, not destroys it. I see that now. Within days, the legal machinery was in motion. Frank's detailed confession and cooperation, combined with the overwhelming evidence, led to expedited proceedings. He was charged with multiple counts of animal cruelty and faced significant prison time, along with mandatory psychiatric treatment. The scientific community descended upon the farm, eager to study Rex's unprecedented abilities. Dr. Chen established a research program that allowed Rex to remain in his home environment while contributing to groundbreaking studies in animal cognition. What Rex has developed goes beyond simple mimicry, she explained to reporters gathered outside the farm gate. He shows complex understanding of human speech, moral concepts, and the ability to form original thoughts and expressions. It's revolutionary. Bethany's life transformed as well. The court appointed James and Marie Walker, experienced farmers with a history of fostering teens, as her legal guardians. They moved into the farmhouse's attached apartment, providing supervision while allowing Bethany to maintain her independence and connection to the land. The farm will be a sanctuary now, Bethany announced, watching Courage play in the sunlight, her wheeled cart allowing her to chase butterflies across the grass. Every animal that needs help will find it here. Rex's testimony became a cornerstone of animal rights legislation, his demonstrated intelligence forcing a re-evaluation of how society viewed and protected animals. The Morrison Farm case set legal precedents for considering animal testimony in abuse cases, with Rex's abilities serving as a watershed moment in the recognition of animal consciousness and rights. The transformation of the Morrison Farm from a place of hidden horrors to a sanctuary of hope and healing had begun. Under Bethany's care, with Rex's wisdom and Courage's inspiring presence, it would become a symbol of redemption and the triumph of compassion over cruelty. Autumn painted the Morrison Farm in warm hues of red and gold as Bethany stood at the newly installed gate, watching the sign painter put the finishing touches on their wooden welcome board. Morrison Farm Animal Sanctuary, it read in cheerful blue letters, where every life has value. Rex sat beside her, his intelligent amber eyes studying the sign. It looks perfect, he said, his speech now smoother after months of practice. Just like we planned. Bethany reached down to scratch behind his ears, a gesture that remained comforting even after his extraordinary abilities had been revealed. We've come so far in just 3 months, haven't we, boy? At their feet, Courage zoomed past in her refined wheelchair, chasing falling leaves with unbridled joy. The tiny orange tabby had grown stronger, her paralyzed legs no longer holding her back, thanks to the improved mobility device that a local veterinary technician had custom designed for her. She shows them what's possible, Rex observed, watching the kitten play. Just like she showed us. The transformation of the Morrison Farm had started small but steady. James and Marie Walker, Bethany's foster parents, had helped her convert the old horse stables into comfortable spaces for injured and disabled animals. Their experience with farm management proved invaluable as they guided Bethany through the practical aspects of running a sanctuary. "The first new resident arrives tomorrow," Bethany reminded Rex, her voice filled with anticipation. A three-legged goat named Charlie, rescued from a neglectful petting zoo, would be joining their growing family. Rex's presence had become instrumental in helping traumatized animals adjust to their new home. His ability to communicate with both humans and animals made him a unique bridge between species. He could explain to scared newcomers that they were safe, while helping the sanctuary staff understand specific needs that animals couldn't otherwise express. "I never imagined my voice would heal instead of accuse," Rex mused, watching volunteers prepare the goat's enclosure. The German Shepherd had found a new purpose, transforming from silent witness to active healer. Courage remained the heart of their operation. Her story of survival against impossible odds, being the sole survivor of her mother's drowning, overcoming her disability, and ultimately helping to bring Frank's crimes to light, inspired everyone who visited the sanctuary. She spent her days greeting newcomers, showing them through example that disability didn't mean defeat. The local community had rallied around their cause. Veterinarians offered discounted services. Craftspeople donated custom-made mobility devices, and families brought their children to learn about compassion and resilience from the sanctuary's residents. "Remember when this barn held so many secrets?" Bethany said softly, walking with Rex through the renovated stable. "Now it's full of light and hope instead." Where Frank had once hidden evidence of his crimes, now hung photos of success stories, animals who had found new life at the sanctuary. Each stall told a story of transformation, not just of the animals, but of the space itself. "From darkness to light," Rex agreed, pausing to nuzzle a rescued rabbit with a missing ear. "Like courage taught us, survival can become strength." The sanctuary operated on a simple principle. Every life deserved a chance to thrive, regardless of physical limitations. It was the opposite of everything Frank had believed about weakness and mercy, a living rejection of his twisted philosophy. Bethany knelt beside Courage, who had wheeled over to join them. "You started all this, little one," she whispered, gently stroking the kitten's fur. "You showed us that broken doesn't mean worthless." The sound of approaching vehicles marked the arrival of more volunteers, ready to help prepare for tomorrow's new resident. The Morrison Farm Animal Sanctuary was small but growing, built on a foundation of compassion, resilience, and the extraordinary bond between a girl, a speaking dog, and a paralyzed kitten who refused to give up. The winter sun cast long shadows across the Morrison Farm Animal Sanctuary as Bethany sorted through the morning mail. Among the usual bills and donation checks, a familiar envelope caught her eye, postmarked from the state correctional facility where her father was serving his sentence. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the letter, Rex's steady presence beside her providing silent support. "Would you like me to read it first?" the German Shepherd offered, his speech measured but clear. "No," Bethany said softly. "I need to do this myself." The letter was different from Frank's previous attempts at communication. His usually rigid handwriting appeared softer, more hesitant. "Dear Bethany, I've been working with Dr. Matthews, my therapist, to understand the damage I've caused. Every day I think about the animals I hurt, believing I was being merciful. I was wrong. My own pain from Vietnam twisted my view of weakness and strength. Watching the news coverage of your sanctuary, seeing Courage thrive despite her disability, has shown me how wrong I was. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I see now what true strength is. It's not destroying what we think is weak. It's protecting those who need help. You knew this all along. I'm sorry, Bethany. I'm sorry for every animal I hurt. I'm sorry for trying to make you as hard and cruel as I had become. You're stronger than I ever was. Love, Dad. Courage wheeled over as Bethany wiped tears from her eyes. The kitten's custom harness now adorned with cheerful stickers from the children who visited the sanctuary. She placed a tiny paw on Bethany's knee, green eyes full of understanding. He's finally facing his demons, Rex observed, watching Bethany carefully fold the letter. The sanctuary had grown beyond their initial hopes. 23 disabled animals now called it home, from three-legged dogs to blind horses, each one teaching visitors about resilience and the power of compassion. Local schools brought students for educational programs, where Rex's extraordinary ability to speak helped bridge the gap between humans and animals. Remember when we thought we were just saving one kitten? Bethany smiled, watching their newest resident, a partially paralyzed sheep named Hope, grazing contentedly in the winter sunshine. Rex nodded, his amber eyes wise. We broke the cycle, he said. Violence became healing. Fear became hope. The sanctuary had become living proof that vulnerability wasn't weakness. Each animal's disability told a story of survival, teaching visitors that imperfection could be beautiful. Courage, now the sanctuary's unofficial ambassador, demonstrated this daily as she zoomed around the property, helping newcomers adjust to their mobility devices. Your father's letter shows change is possible, Rex observed, as they watched volunteers leading therapy sessions with injured animals. Even the deepest wounds can heal. Bethany gathered Courage in her arms, the kitten purring contentedly. Together, they walked through their sanctuary, a place where speaking up for the voiceless had transformed a legacy of cruelty into an endless circle of protection and healing. The old barn, once a chamber of secrets, now rang with the sounds of hope and recovery. We did it, Courage, Bethany whispered to the kitten who had started it all. We turned darkness into light. Rex pressed against her side, his presence a reminder of how one voice, raised against cruelty, could change everything. No more silence, he said firmly. No more fear. The Morrison Farm Animal Sanctuary stood as testament to their journey, proof that true strength lay not in destroying the vulnerable, but in protecting them. In choosing to speak, to act, to care, they had broken a generational chain of violence and created something beautiful in its place. Together, they had transformed a place of hidden horrors into a beacon of healing, where every life, no matter how broken, had value. And in doing so, they had healed themselves. Thank you for watching. If even one moment stayed with you, don't forget to subscribe. I'll be here tomorrow with another story that speaks to the heart.